I know you've thought about it at some point. And yes, it's very likely that Stripe and Trixie will get divorced in the 4th season of Bluey. And even though it might seem a bit exaggerated and a heavy topic to address in Bluey, the truth is that there are a lot of clues that point to this actually happening. Why don't we see him? Why? Stripe and Trixie are going to get divorced in the 4th season of Bluey. Stripe and Trixie are not the best couple in Bluey's world. They have been criticized for spoiling their daughters, for how they raise Muffin, and many other things. But most importantly, they haven't been as close a couple as, for example, Bandit and Chili. In fact, they're the complete opposite of Bluey's parents. Stripe and Trixie do argue in front of their children, and both face problems that make their relationship even more difficult. For example, we know that Trixie has trouble controlling her anxiety, and Stripe, being the younger brother, is still learning to be a good partner and a good father. This according to Bluey's official website. But apparently all these challenges are getting out of hand for them. Trixie is showing her anger towards Stripe more and more, and poor Stripe is just a few stripes away from exploding from so many arguments. And this has only created a lot of tension in their relationship, tension that could end in a sad divorce. I'm not saying this for no reason, my friend. There are several clues that actually show us how, little by little, Stripe and Trixie's relationship has been deteriorating. Faceytalk was the first episode that showed us that dysfunctional side of Stripe and Trixie. In this episode, Bluey and Bingo are having a video call with Muffin and Socks. Muffin goes all crazy and Stripe starts chasing her all around the house. This makes Trixie angry and causes them to start arguing about how Muffin is being raised.
I'll take care of it, Stripe, yes. But you have to do it perfectly.
But in this argument, Trixie gives us a big clue and she complains to Stripe that he's almost never home.
You didn't tell me!
You're never here!
But despite this disagreement, we see how they end up giving each other a reconciliatory hug. It seems like another lesson that Bluey wants to teach us. There's an argument, it gets resolved and everyone is happy, but no. This episode told us much more than we expected. Did you see how calm Muffin was while her parents were about to get into the ring? That's not normal for a girl who's seeing her parents fight for the first time. Muffin is already used to them fighting all the time, and she sees it as something normal now. We're not just saying this to create drama, guys. In fact, they gave us another clue that only a few people noticed, and that's that even Bandit himself wasn't surprised by this argument. It was like, oh yeah, they do that all the time, they'll get over it. It wasn't like when Chili and Bandit got mad at each other in the episode Postman, and Bluey was all traumatized by that harmless argument. Bro, Bluey even had to come up with a whole plan to get her parents to make up. And that wasn't even a big deal compared to Muffin and Socks, who don't even care anymore. The next even more obvious clues are in the episode The Sign. Here, things aren't just simple fights anymore. If we start putting together all these little actions that Stripe and Trixie have when they're together, we'll realize that they're already in a very, very toxic marriage. Not just for them, but also for their own daughters. And honestly, the 5 scenes we have of the 2 of them in this episode are some of the most uncomfortable. If you pay attention, it's when the girls are rehearsing for the wedding. Clumsy Stripe let slip a secret about Rad to Frisky that he shouldn't have, and Trixie ended up getting mad at Stripe because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. And, well, because of him, the wedding was almost ruined. We know this because after Stripe spills the beans, Frisky tries to call Rad. But in the back, Stripe and Trixie meet, and Trixie is confronting him about what he told Frisky. Another fight! And we can see that Trixie is really upset, but instead of just apologizing or doing something, Stripe gets angry. And instead, he just turns around and leaves. But if you pay closer attention, Stripe's annoyance is not only obvious in his answers, but also in the way he rolls his eyes at Trixie. It wasn't like on Faceytalk where they talked, cleared up the misunderstanding, and gave each other a loving hug. No, here it was more like, screw it, damn crazy woman, I'm sick of you. And if we use Bandit and Chili as an example in this same situation, believe me, something completely different would have happened. Chili probably would have been more understanding with Bandit and would have suggested that they work it out. At no point would Chili have acted like a grumpy lady, just complaining instead of doing something to fix it. Also, Bandit would have admitted his mistake and apologized, just like when he treated Bingo badly, or even when he stole her chip. And the thing is, Trixie, at this point, seems like she's just looking for reasons to argue with Stripe, but without reaching any solution. After this, it's most likely that Stripe and Trixie didn't talk to each other again until the start of the wedding. But this is just the beginning of the fact that they really can't stand each other anymore. Well, once again, when Frisky throws the bouquet, we see Stripe jump to catch the flowers, and Trixie looks at him with that look of disappointment and embarrassment. She almost seems to regret being with Stripe. This makes it clear that Stripe is an adult who behaves like a child and prefers to have fun, which doesn't connect with Trixie at all. Are they not compatible? But it seems like both of them want to stay in that toxic cycle of arguing and pretending like nothing is happening. Even though we know their relationship is on its last legs, this example makes it very clear. When everyone is having dinner, we see Trixie acting like nothing happened, together with Stripe after the argument, trying to pretend in front of everyone that nothing is wrong and that they have a happy marriage. But this, my friends, is already very toxic for everyone. Because even though they want to pretend they're fine, everything gets ruined again over some silly thing. Because right when they finished getting totally wasted, we see how Socks is imitating their toxic arguments, while in the background we have Stripe and Trixie right in the middle of yet another argument. Also, if you pay attention to Socks' game, it's exactly what Stripe and Trixie are fighting about. And once again, they end up angry, and Trixie just walks away. But a few scenes later, we see them dancing their hearts out, even though they left angry. So their relationship is basically screaming divorce. It's not normal for them to be fighting every 5 minutes, and all of this happened in the same episode. Now, what really goes on at their house when we're not watching, and the biggest clue that they might actually get divorced, is right at the end of the episode, El Cartel, since Stripe ended up getting completely wasted and Trixie just left him to his fate. She didn't even care that Stripe ended up falling asleep in the bushes. So probably because of all the fights and arguments Stripe has had with Trixie, Uncle Stripe turned to alcohol to forget about his family problems. All these clues suggest to us that many arguments like this had already happened between Stripe and Trixie, and that most of their days are pretty much like this. Maybe this is the reason why Stripe prefers to work more than to be at his own home. And if you ask me, yes, I do think it's possible. But how did they get to this point? Aren't you supposed to marry and have kids with the person you love the most? Well, you just have to analyze Stripe and Trixie's personalities a bit to realize they were never really compatible. Let's start with Stripe. Stripe is more about being free and going out partying. He wants to keep enjoying life without commitments and without anyone telling him what he has to do. Even on Faceytalk, Pizza Girls, or The Sleepover, they made it clear that he doesn't even want to take care of his daughters. On Faceytalk, he just wanted to lie down and look at his phone. On Pizza Girls, they showed he only buys toys for Muffin and Socks so they entertain themselves and don't bother him. And at The Sleepover, well, the story tells itself. As we can see, Stripe is not cut out to be a model family man compared to his brother Wrath. That guy really matured. And Bandit, well, let's just say being Chili's simp has really worked out for Bandit. Otherwise, it would be a disaster. But going back to Reyes, he's really been testing your patience. Wouldn't it have been better for this dog to stay single and go around breaking hearts? After all, he's hardly ever home. And on the other hand, Trixie is more like a lady who just wants to have a nice family with her house, her car, and a lady who helps her clean the house. Trixie really made a mistake choosing the father of her kids. She probably never imagined he would be this annoying. Another thing we can say about Trixie is that it's really hard for her to keep her patience and control herself. This causes her to clash a lot with Stripe, since if you notice, she's always the one who starts the fights. And come on, I'm not saying it's wrong to disagree with your partner, but Trixie crosses that line because she wants to boss Stripe around. She insists on having things done exactly the way she wants. And of course, this will end in a fight since Stripe, with his childish behavior, doesn't admit his mistakes and always makes excuses. I mean, maybe at the beginning of all those arguments, Stripe did make an effort. That's why we saw him make up in Faceytalk. But after it happens over and over again, probably every day, obviously Stripe was going to get tired of trying to fix things. And well, Trixie is less tolerant when it comes to relationship and even family problems. A clear example is when she forced Muffin to wear the cone of shame to fix her bad habit. It was an exaggerated method for a simple 3-year-old girl, don't you think? And we find a second example in the episode The Poster. Well, we already saw that Trixie didn't even try to be understanding with Stripe and just blamed him for everything. So it's most likely that both of them are already reaching their breaking point. The bad thing is that they're not taking into account that Muffin and Socks are watching all this toxic behavior. Like I said before, maybe at first they really were genuine reconciliations. But knowing what Stripe is like, the rest was just to avoid more problems and to let Trixie have her way. It's like giving her what she wants just to make her stop bothering him. And on the other hand, Trixie seems like the typical woman who puts up with all that for her kids and to keep her marriage together. But is this healthy? Well, honestly, it's a pretty hard topic to understand for many people. The answer is clear, but for many of us, it's hard to accept. In fact, maybe some of you have your own theories that the relationship between Stripe and Trixie is just going through a rough patch or an obstacle, and that this will just work itself out and they'll keep being a happy family. Also, Joe Brum has said that he only wants happy stories for the episodes, nothing tragic, so Stripe and Trixie will stay together, right? Well, I don't think this is possible. Just because Joe Brum only wants happy stories doesn't mean he won't include tragedies in the episodes. In fact, he's already done it before, and with very heavy topics for children. And some examples of these are Winton's dad's divorce and the terrier's mom. Maybe it wasn't so obvious or explicit, but the story is there. It was something that happened in the episodes, for God's sake. We even saw the terrier's dad as a homeless man on the streets. Or what about the little bird that died in the copying episode? And this topic was so tragic that it ended up impacting even the adults. Or what about all the times they mistreated Bingo and it broke our hearts to see her suffer? These weren't 100% happy stories. They were stories that left a mark on me for life, and I can't stop crying. And so we already have clear examples that Joe Brum does like to add drama, even if the topics are more serious. So the divorce of Stripe and Trixie is a complete reality. If we compare it to these sad stories from Bluey, it would fit perfectly. Just think about it. They're in a cycle or loop where they fight and make up, and each time it gets worse. The fights get more intense each time, and they're losing their patience. And not only that, but these fights are strongly affecting Muffin and Socks. But with a divorce or a separation, they might both have enough time alone to reflect or to get a break from each other. There are many couples who live happily this way. They can't stand living together, but living apart, they're very happy every time they see each other again. Maybe with this, Trixie could have a lot more patience with Stripe, just like Chili and her patience with Bandit. And Stripe could mature by reflecting on what happened. Maybe their divorce is like Bluey's backstories, not very explicit, but they leave us clues that it actually happened. Wow, I make it much easier for you. Let's compare it to Winton's dad's divorce. We watched him suffer, go through his process, and ultimately become happy with his new partner. With Stripe and Trixie, we're already suffering. Their process would be the divorce and possibly therapy. Their happiness would be that they can finally be together without fighting, or that they're happy, each living their own life. And that way, Muffin and Socks can grow up in a healthier way. We even have the example with Judo, who spent some time with her mom and some time with her dad. Besides, those two are already adults who are unlikely to change unless something major happens, in this case, the divorce. If they stay together and somehow solve their problems, I'm 1000% sure that in the future they'll relapse and those fights will continue. Besides, I don't think they're so selfish that they leave their daughters traumatized by their pointless fights. This way, Joe Brum's formula of having a happy ending would be fulfilled. And even though it's hard for many of us, sometimes in life you have to make tough decisions like this to keep moving forward and be happy. But what do you think about this theory? Do you think Stripe and Trixie should get divorced? Let us know in the comments.